Hello and welcome to Macy Cooks. I'm going to start out with an apology for how many times I am going to reference the South, talk about the South, or possibly mention Texas. The recipe we're cooking today is something that you will be so grateful that you know how to make. Not only is it a great side dish and pairs well with just about everything, but it's really delicious by itself. Today we're making jalapeno cornbread. Before we get started though, I need to mention that something terrible has happened. I'm not asking people to start a GoFundMe page or, call up the local law enforcement and file an Amber Alert, but my cast iron skillet has been stolen. I'm not sure who came into my home in the middle of the night and stole my cast iron, but somebody did, and I want you to know I will find out. And as much as it pains me to say this, we're gonna have to continue this video without a cast iron. So if you wouldn't mind, let's say a moment of silence in respect for my cast iron. Thank you. Now before we haul off with the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients and get me on a rant about the controversy behind cornbread, let's talk about the jalapenos. It's totally okay if you don't want to use jalapenos in yours. I do think you are a baby, but that's all right. So for jalapenos, we are going to mince them up. Some people I know like to cook their peppers before they put it in their batter. However, I do not, because to be honest with you, I like it to have some heat. If you're a baby, that's fine, no judgment, but I prefer mine to be raw and then bake into the cornbread. As you'll see, I've tried to eliminate some of the seeds. Number one, they'll add extra heat to the batter, but number two, they're kind of bitter and overall just not very good in the cornbread. Once you're finished mincing up the jalapenos, go wash your hands immediately. Nothing, and I repeat nothing, will transport you to the seventh circle of hell faster than touching your eyes or your nose or your mouth with raw jalapeno juice. And let's be honest, according to Etouffee 19 research, none of us are washing our hands enough. Don't be a statistic. Just wash your hands. Trust me. We're going to divide up this next section into wet and dry ingredients. In your dry bowl, you will need a cup of cornmeal and also 3/4 cups of flour. To that, add a pinch of salt. To that, you're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, if you're wondering why we used both baking soda and baking powder, I actually uploaded a video over how to make baking powder and the difference between the two, and I'll add it right here. But just as a quick overview, you're adding both because we're also going to incorporate buttermilk into this recipe, and the acid in the buttermilk is going to act with the base of the baking soda, and if you don't compensate with an additional acid, you'll lose some of the tanginess from the buttermilk. Now, I'm a little nervous about this next step because honestly, I feel like I might lose some friends. To this, I'm going to ask you to add 1/4 cup of sugar. Sugar, no sugar, I know, I've heard it. Here's the deal. I know there's a lot of people who believe that sugar does not have a place in cornbread. In fact, I would say that about 50% of you think, ew, gross. Now listen, I didn't say we were making Jiffy. No offense, Jiffy, especially if you're wanting to sponsor me. And don't get me wrong, I like bitter cornbread as well, that doesn't have any sugar. But for this particular recipe, I really think you need the sugar. Grab your whisk and kind of mix that around a bit. Make sure that it's all well incorporated. Moving on to the wet, in a separate bowl we have 1.5 cups of buttermilk. Okay, I don't care whether you like buttermilk or not, all right? Because to be honest with you, I don't like it either. I'm certainly not one of those individuals who's gonna drink it by itself, and especially not as a meal. God love my husband, he enjoys his with pepper in it. Either way, just add the buttermilk, please. It's gonna add richness to the batter. It's also gonna play very well with the sugar and the spicy jalapeno. Pour in that 1.5 cups of buttermilk using a rubber spatula to ensure that you get all of the buttermilk from the bowl. Next up, you're gonna add 2 beaten eggs. Next up to the party is 1 stick of butter melted. Make sure that butter is not hot because otherwise you're gonna scramble your eggs. There's nothing worse than taking a bite of cornbread with a chunk of scrambled egg in it. Once it's been mixed, add in the raw jalapenos and then give it a toss. Now you don't want to overdo this. You don't really want to mess with the batter too much. I like to make sure that it's just all mixed. I can't even express how upset I am I don't have my cast iron for this video. Wherever you are, I will find you. Grab whatever it is you're baking this in. Hopefully it's a cast iron, but if not, fine. And then grease it well. Transfer the batter into the baking dish. Once it's in, give it a good shake just to kind of level it out. Once you have it leveled out, transfer it over to a 425-degree oven for approximately 20 minutes. Dankeschön, darling, Dankeschön. Oh! Look at this beautiful, fluffy, rich, just incredible cornbread. Now, not only is it packing some heat with those raw jalapenos, but it's also well balanced with the sugar. If you'll notice, this is an exceptionally fluffy cornbread, and the reason why is because we added that baking soda, baking powder, and buttermilk. All the carbon dioxide that was released during the chemical reaction caused it to rise. One of my favorite things to eat this with is red beans and rice, or crawfish etouffee, or jambalaya. But I'll tell you, it's very delicious if you smear a little bit of honey butter on the top. Here's the deal. Those jalapenos are not really that spicy. It's not gonna light you up when you eat it. It just adds a really unique flavor to cornbread that I think that, frankly, it could stand to use. Regardless of your opinion on sugar or jalapenos, I really do think you should try this cornbread. Get baking, y'all.